Hey everybody, this is going to be a breakdown of Uncle Tom's Cabin. The passage comes from the 2016 College Board Practice Exam. The lexile of Uncle Tom's Cabin is 1050. Benchmark was 8 with 11 questions, written in 1852. So I went ahead and read it, and you can look at my original annotations minus the yellow. I set off the first sentence because everything that came after seemed to be an example of that first sentence, which I was wrapping my head around, and then it started to make a bit more sense. I went to paragraph 2, which it talks about the stranger that arrives, who is called the traveler, and then this tiny interaction that happens between the traveler and the aforesaid gentleman, which is just a Kentuckian. In question 1, the first sentence of the passage serves 2, so I go through all of them. A, maybe. B is wrong because of regional dialect. C, it doesn't have any nostalgia. D, I felt like that was a trick. There's no technical idiom. And then E, establish the tone and mood of the scene. That could have been it too, so notice I didn't mark anything out. However, the tone and the mood, if I'm looking at just that sentence, your Kentuckian of the present day is a good illustration of the doctrine of transmitted instincts and peculiarities. That's a pretty fancy sentence. But then later, there's a talk about tobacco juice, which is not on the same tone as this. So to me, the better answer was A, which is the correct answer. And 35, the phrase "with the stars to hold their candles" suggests that the men, so I went back over here, with the stars to hold their candles, and I saw that the men who lived in the woods slept under the free open heavens with stars to hold their candles. So I realized they just didn't have light. They were using stars as their candlelight. So then over here, the one that made the most sense was B. In 36, sword, which if I go back over here, of course, that's one of the words I wasn't sure. So in 36, what does it mean? Well, if I plug those in, the one that makes the most sense, or the only one that makes really any sense, is the meadow, because they're talking about the new Kentuckian and how his forefather rolled on the green blank and put his, meaning his feet, up on trees and logs. So which one makes the most sense? In this case, it would be C, meadow. In a series of comparisons in the first paragraph, trees and logs are analogous to, so the speaker's discussing how the new Kentuckian puts his feet on chairs and mantles, while his forefather put his feet up on logs and stumps. So trees and logs, or whatever, logs and stumps, are the same as chairs or mantelpieces. Oh, of course, this is the other word I wasn't for sure. Bohemian, I don't even know. In line 13, nonchalant. So I go back in and I'm reading it. So this new Kentuckian calls everybody stranger with nonchalant and is altogether the frankest and most jovial person. So he does it out of kindness. So the one that made the most sense here was E. He just does it. He's just a casual friend to everybody. In the context of the passage, the first paragraph serves primarily to, I went with C, establish a character that will be contrasted with that of the traveler. A, unsympathetic, kind of made that wrong. B, censure, made B wrong. I waited, this was my last guess, but it was between C and D, because sinister knocked out answer E. But there really isn't any romance about the American frontier. I guess I could even argue that Kentucky is not part of that. So the best answer is C. The narrator accounts for the behavior of the present-day Kentuckians by D, claiming that it had been inherited, and we have transmitted instincts, and it talks about his fathers. That's in the first couple lines. In lines 17 through 31, the series of 3 sentences beginning with he served to, well, an A, congenial, that he's not that friendly. The character's motivations, it's more about what he looks like. Accumulate suspenseful images or ominous. I didn't see any suspense or ominous, but does it help to develop that humorous contrast? Yes, which kind of backs up number 39. 42, the behavior of the traveler with regard to his valise and umbrella is used as an example of his fastidious character, even though we don't have enough really to probably call him fastidious. It is better than the other ones because I know he doesn't want to remain inconspicuous. It doesn't really explain his role in the story just by talking about his valise and umbrella. There's no warning about material possessions, and it's not hostile, so A is the best answer. In line 28, illustrated most nearly means, and I knew that in it talks about whose heels illustrated the end of the mantelpiece. I knew this guy had his boots propped up on the mantelpiece. So which of those options in number 43 makes the most sense? Decorated. His boots decorated the mantle. And then I got 44 wrong. The correct answer is B, but it's my fault. I totally misread it. I thought it was the traveler's attitude toward the Kentuckian, not the narrator, who is totally outside the story. So I got it down to D and E, overt contempt, stunned disbelief, and I didn't think it was overt, so I went with stunned disbelief when the guy says, "Oh my goodness," or whatever. But if I go back and think about how the narrator feels about the aforementioned gentleman and him spitting his tobacco juice toward the traveler, I can see that he's just trying to be funny. Like he thinks it's just a funny situation. So that's the one I missed. There's my reason why. If you have any questions, just email me.